Is there something that changes?
No.
Okay.
You can't identify what that carrier
So I forgot to number the agenda.
I was way off on what I told you.
Okay, so we're just gonna do A, B, C, D instead of 1, 2, 3.
So these two are the ones that changed or asked. And this one is just a phone here. Committee VCs. And I'll have these two that full screen.
Slinging that pen around.
Sorry. I knew you always wanted ink, Cody.
I don't think he heard you.
Right
Huh?
now.
I don't think he heard you, but it was
Okay.
funny.
I thought it was funny too.
Okay.
With his lap down.
I
So
said
we
you
kinda
always
have
wanted to
that
be
$200,000
inked and she'd have some ink on the
That's
front of
right.
that.
Cody,
That's right.
30-50.
Was he just being generous and
Yeah.
decided to give it to you?
It
or-
was, the $100,000 was our school project.
Oh,
She
okay.
took it off and lumped it into that seven, so that seven became eight.
Okay.
Because I was thinking to myself too, I thought we'd get eight, and I got seven.
Yeah.
I thought it was just better looking or something, I don't know.
Compared to his.
Most of the guys in your garage. Maybe. I don't know how they would.
Alright. Miles, we'll go ahead.
Wait, you're.
We're gonna go ahead and start to get you out of the hole. Hey, just go ahead.
Yeah.
Before you make any more waves with Brandy, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna save you.
That's the chief deputy. Starting next week. I don't get that.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
2 weeks, right?
We'll see.
It is for the chiefs.
All right, call this meeting to order. This is the Budget Evaluation Team special meeting for Thursday, April the 8th. Kelly, do we need to do a roll call to get everybody?
I can check.
So everybody is attending in person, so we do not need the technical difficulty portion of the agenda. Notice of this meeting was properly posted Tuesday, April the 5th. First thing on our agenda is to receive Department FY 21-22 estimate of needs. We have an updated MIS estimate of needs. It's different than the one that's attached. I think it was emailed out to everybody, so everybody should have it. But let's go ahead and receive this updated estimate of need.
Motion, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Kelly, do we need to do anything on this, on the treasurer one that you gave me?
No, it's just a formula error. I didn't
Okay.
change anything.
All right. Next item, review FY 21-22 estimate of needs. This will consist of general government, commissioners, and economic development. Everybody that's here today that's going to be presenting, we have a special place over here so you can be on camera. So if you would, please present from
Yay.
this locale.
Thanks, Dave.
Morning, Kelly. Afternoon, I mean. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
You consider staying.
You don't want to fall. What do you have planned in your presentation? Do I need to? I mean, Danny's got colored charts. I'm just wondering what you're bringing to the table.
Nothing.
Here's a piece of yellow right down here.
The economic development is the same as it was last year.
Whoa, I don't have economic development.
Are we doing general fund?
Yeah.
Let's do
Okay.
general government.
It is not correct. To tell you from the start, I have not received any numbers from the jail trust to put in for theirs. We don't know. We received from Vicinity an estimate of what the utility would be for it. But there's still a chance that electric could be higher. The insurance has went up quite a bit because of different claims that we had last year.
Okay. Well, the electricity, I mean, that, we don't really, I mean, we just have to take a wag at it and look at, you know, what we've had in the past. So other than the criminal justice authority, once we get that number, is there anything else that you anticipate needing to change on this?
And the outside legal, every year it has rose tremendously.
Mhm.
And I just pretty much stuck a number in there. We have already spent almost that much this year, and we still have bills that need to be paid.
Yeah.
So it could be higher, it could be less, depending on if the case is closed or not this year.
I don't know why you both just look at me.
You did so I
I
did.
know. Let's hope.
We've hoped that for 2 years now.
Yes. So the vicinity actually went down, can you tell?
They gave us a email notice of it being the 618,000, but there's no guarantee that that's what it's gonna be. I mean, that's just a
Yeah, it's a
forecast
yeah.
that they have.
And that keeps with what you've done before, you've gotten emails and put in whatever
Yes.
number they
Yeah.
provide.
I mean, that's a sizable difference if you see, I mean, with our
Yeah.
utilities.
But if you remember, Keith and his crew have been manually operating a lot of the systems recently to be able to control it more,
Well, and one
Regularly.
reason it's less also, we took the jail off of it. They have their own separate billing now,
Yeah,
so we
that
don't
makes
pay
sense.
for it.
right.
Yeah.
But that was that way for this past year.
But we didn't get anything for electric,
No,
we just spitballing that one too.
Yes.
100,000.
The
Probably.
insurance premiums and blankets, did you have hard numbers there? Were you
no,
gonna- okay.
Dan has not gotten them yet, and they usually don't have them until, I think he said
Is it
June.
June?
Can I speak to that real quick?
Sure.
Is that all right?
You have to sit
No.
here.
No, I'm good, I'll be over there in a little bit. You know, it went up about double last year, and, they told us to anticipate that we'll probably be up about 20% again. But, if you'll remember, we did 2-month tag on to the last year's premium, so we had July and August, on the old numbers, and then September 1, the new policy started. I've asked them, can we move back to the fiscal year beginning for insurance this year? And they said they're working with Zurich to try and get that done. So we'll probably get a rebate back on that, and then be back on fiscal year, full year. But I would expect 15 to 20%. You know, we've got a $700,000 jail or a courthouse elevator claim going right now. So that won't help us much.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? We will definitely have to revisit this later, just with the criminal justice authority for sure, once we iron that out. But other than that, anybody have any other questions, comments? Okay. Let's go to county commissioner budget.
The only changes on it, the mileage changed last year, and so it's went up. But the phone has went down because Commissioner Bloomer now has a county phone. And so we pay less for that, and that's the only changes. Their raises that they got December 1st or 31st are on there also.
And it's annualized.
Yes.
Any questions? All right, economic development,
It is the same as it was last year. I have not heard that it's going to go up. It's been 200,000, I think, for the last 3 or 4 years that we've done it. And we pay it, usually we pay in December and then we pay in June.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think they submitted an increase to the chairman's office, but I think it was after you did the estimate meetings.
I haven't seen an increase.
Brian.
Chairman. Yeah, I got rid of that one.
Butch was CC'd on it, is how I heard about it. I think you're asking for with instead of 200?
I think I got the same email about 300.
Okay, yeah, I didn't receive it.
Do you recall?
I don't know if I got an email, but I've had phone calls.
Yeah, I told you 300 yesterday. You recall? So,
They don't want
Yeah.
me to change to
It's-
300.
It's been mentioned
I can forward,
on a couple
forward
of,
it to you. You
couple of
forwarded it
meetings.
to me and make sure I bring it up, so.
Well, that's something that, I mean, as we go through the budget process, we can always
yeah.
adjust that.
That's all I have.
Thank
Any other
you.
questions?
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Are you guys in on CDC? Is that what I just did?
No. Finally, I see the switch yesterday.
Oh.
All right, next item,
She was being
review FY 21-22 estimated needs for facilities management and custodial, I just made up a new word. Facilities custodial. And it mentions capital improvement regular, but that is not attached.
Oh, wait, what? All right then.
Where's the human rain delay? Oh, there it is. Are you not presenting?
I'm watching the safety of the application.
Move away from me.
I was gonna say, take over there.
So
Good
we're starting
afternoon,
with
Chris.
facilities.
Yeah.
He's out there in the peanut gallery.
We'll just start from the top and go down.
It's your pleasure.
Okay. The first item is salaries and wages. We're looking for a 5% increase on that. You'll see that increase. And go down to benefits, everything adjusts accordingly, because of the 5% increase. Travel stays about the same. If you drop down about halfway to the page, you'll see item 54156. Building and ground vendor maintenance, that goes up substantially. That's because we lost our DOC help. So we had to bring in a lawn care vendor. Also recycling affects that. The next line is also building and grounds for Koenig. We bring them in early morning to make sure that the court flows properly and make sure that there's no elevator issues with the courts. And so we have to pay for that, which that brings us up quite a bit. Also, the next line, 54161, is also grounds vendor repair, yard trash, pest control, and fire control. Fire control and pest control takes a lot. We're doing a lot of remodeling, which causes fire control to have to do a lot of work. As you go down, there's not much changes until you get down to services, and that's because we lost DOC, so that's no longer necessary. Down at capital outlay, you'll see a big change on 55050, that's building and grounds window washing. We want to step that up. We want to do it quarterly, so that price increase reflects that, which is our grand
How
total.
often do you do it now?
We do it yearly.
Just once a year?
Yes. We're trying to step it up to quarterly. We think that's necessary.
So if you're doing it quarterly, does that mean that you'll get to at least each window once?
Once a quarter.
Okay.
Is that
You
just
may
this
need
building?
more. Huh?
Just this building
That's just building the courthouse.
Yes.
and the courthouse?
Yes. Now that project 180 is complete, surely the wind will stop blowing and there won't be nearly as much dust.
Did you say surely the wind will stop blowing?
It's
Alright.
$15,000
I did not see Voodoo Doctor.
per trip.
Budget.
Okay, I'll get a couple of questions.
Mhm.
Your salary,
Yes.
you've got 1,080,000 there, but it looks like that's not capturing a part-time position, technician, at 23,520. You guys see that?
Oh, yeah.
part-time position.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so your salary increase is 68,592 over there, I believe.
Take out of this sheet here.
Yes.
And then you got your, part-time.
Part-time.
Part-time, so you got your salary, your fringe benefits.
Mhm.
Alright. See how,
Kelly, that should auto feed.
Yeah,
shouldn't
somebody
it?
must have changed the formula on the worksheet.
so, this one. It says, here.
I can help them get that changed.
But what it really
Okay.
is, what that number should be is just 1.14.
Yeah, I'm seeing, I'm showing it.
Yeah, so we got one up four here. That's what the number should be. It should be the number here. Right there.
Kelly will help you. There's a formula that was messed up. It should automatically
Yeah.
pull these numbers over to that other page.
Okay.
So these other increases though that make up the 45,000, those are, did you say a 5%?
5%, yes.
Okay, okay.
Is
Because
that-
what we've talked about doing for this year is not including, excuse me, pay increases, merit-based pay increases and COLAs in the actual estimated needs request. We're gonna address that globally for the organization after we set all the other budgets.
So all of our staff who's watching on TJ's mobile phone, we included that 5% just so that you wouldn't forget.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay,
They're gonna
so it's
update,
kind of a wash.
update the request with the formula errors, should we go ahead and have them take that off?
I mean, for consistency's sake, I would say settle. I mean, that's how we're doing it. I mean, if
Now that we
employees
know
of an
it's in there.
organization don't like that, I'm sorry, but it's, and we're doing it for everybody, so.
Not saying that you won't get it, it's just saying that we're gonna do it all at once, so else we make it easier.
And it helps us because whenever it's presented like this, then Danny has to figure out how much of that is the 5% and then has to back it all out, and then we have to make sure that it is backed out, and then when we add stuff back, that it's added back appropriately. So by not having it in there from the beginning, it makes sure that we're able to cross all of our Ts and dot all of our Is.
Understood.
Sorry, cross our Is and dot our Ts. That's what we do.
Anything else?
I think so.
Okay,
Custodial.
Custodial. We go to our custodial worksheet. Let's go down to the 54156. You'll see, building and grounds, vendor maintenance. UBM has raised their square footage pricing. It was 0.0489, it has went to 0.0517. They've also increased their extra service pricing from $12.50 to $13 an hour. So that reflects those increases. And our supplies, we're looking for a 15% increase. The wood pulp pricing, transportation, delivery, as well as other things have all increased substantially, and we're just trying to keep up with the increases.
The first two increases that you talked about, the vendor maintenance contract and the other, are those consistent with the contract provisions? Those
UVM has
increases
just
are-
finished their first year of a 5-year contract.
Right, and this is just reflective of those adjustments, okay?
Yes.
So we are in line there.
Any questions?
No, none for me. Anybody else?
Good luck on keeping that 15%.
Okay. What's next?
Sorry, I forgot the capital projects one. They'll have to come later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do
Good job.
projects.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. All right, review FY 21-22 estimate of needs for county engineer. Casey Trumbo here. We're a little ahead of schedule, maybe. Hey, Keith, if you're headed down that direction, can you let Trumbo know that we're a little early? Sure. Thank you.
You need Tyler.
Yeah.
Tyler's here.
Yeah. Review FY 21-22 estimate of needs for county planning. We'll get engineering when Stacy gets done. Tyler?
The hot seat over here?
Yes, sir. How are you doing?
Okay. Fee fund, general fund.
General.
General fund, we're basically asking for the same as, last year. There's no changes. We, the way things look, things are gonna be about the same. I don't see anything in the future that's gonna make it, any better. So we're asking for some assistance from the general fund for salaries for 2 to 3 full-time workers. And that's all we're asking for. We're not asking for, the fringe benefits along with that. The travel, one of the employees that's on this request list, does get mileage. And his mileage is in part of that. Well, all of the operations will be under the fee fund.
So that mileage you're gonna pay for out of fee fund, because it's,
No,
No, it's in there.
not for this one individual.
Oh, it's
But
not.
No, it's not.
in there. You didn't ask
It's
for
not
it.
in there?
No.
No, out there, you're 7,800, did you figure out? Friday, Kelly contracted,
Yeah,
you go see with her and
okay. That
correct
should be in
that,
there.
pretty good. And then is that the same on the cell phone stipend down at the, are you?
Yeah,
requesting
that
as
was,
well?
yeah, basic operation, yeah.
Okay. So you need to, so, that we need to carry over.
Kelly, can you make a note? Thank you. Any other questions?
Travel and cell phone.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we go to fee fund.
And the fee fund, the, 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees on that one. And all of the other administrative costs, equipment, copying, all the other things that we do on the planning is on the board of costs from the fee fund. And, there are no special out of the ordinary requests of any kind.
Which one is it that you were living without general fund dollars? Is that the fee fund?
Yeah. So you're still just seeing reduced collections into that fund versus 3 and 4 years ago when you were able to just live out of that, right?
Yeah.
And we need to look at some of those permitting fees and that kind of stuff. I mean, we kind of
Yeah.
talked about that a
Tyler
little
had
bit.
been talking about the permitting fee.
Changes in that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that may help in the future.
yes.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since it's been raised.
Our
Oh, it-
permitting fee is way out of line.
Yeah, it's out of line.
It-
Way out of line.
I mean, for
We're way
instance,
below the market.
City of Oklahoma City might be $120 or $10 or
Yeah.
something.
Oh,
I
gosh,
mean,
yeah.
it's like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
We're out of whack.
so we need to address it.
That's why all the marijuana people are coming our way.
I know, right?
Oh, yeah. That's easy in Oklahoma County.
Awesome.
have our niche.
Is that really why? We'll
One
talk
of the big
about that.
reasons.
Comments?
You don't have to follow city code. It's one of the big reasons.
Yeah.
All right, thanks Tyler, appreciate it. All right, review FY 21-22 estimate and needs for county engineer. Thanks for coming down, Stacy, we're a little ahead of schedule, so. How are you this afternoon?
Very good, thank you.
Good job with your budget.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thanks for coming down.
Benefits went up a little bit, that's
Yeah.
not my fault.
Might.
Hey, you and I and Tyler discussed the planning commission fees.
Yes.
Let's really get from the planning stage to actually doing something about that. We probably want to do it in policy and governance or one of those meetings.
We'll just have to take it for the planning commission and DOCC. Get some numbers together and start running through committees.
Yeah. That's not very good to see.
All right. It's early.
Hey, that's my line with the Cubs, it's early. I'm not supposed to be saying that. Thanks, Stacy. All right, review FY 21-22 estimate needs for HR, health and safety. Mr. Matthews.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward.
Is your payout in here?
No, for those of you that may not know, I'm retiring in July. So,
As of when?
July 9th. So, I'm hopefully gonna take a lovely party gift with me of 480 vacation hours.
There you go.
And it's not in there.
I thought it was about to see. Wait, what? How do I make this happen? Is there something?
We'll make it work.
Yeah, so that being said, if you can, let's look at what that number is, because that is early in the fiscal year. And we'll need to consider that when we're establishing watch lists, knowing that that number's gonna have to come out almost immediately, so.
Unless he wants to wait.
What?
Unless you wanna wait on it.
No.
We'll drag that out past the September supplement. I think we can do what we have to do.
Right.
Then we'll come up with another excuse.
Yeah.
Dan, tell me what your note is about the salaries. That's the actual salaries, just annualizing
Yeah,
something
when
that.
I went in to do that, what was budgeted and what was actual didn't match up, so Kelly helped me clean that up. Other than that, it's pretty flat.
Okay, hey, yesterday I mentioned to Jamie, she's needing to get some more CPR mannequins and didn't know on ordering multiples or whatever, so we need a restock and they
Yeah,
talked to her.
yeah, no, we just bought some last year.
Okay,
I think we're good.
okay. I knew they'd been getting long in the tooth, but I was ready.
Yeah, I'm with you. So my 18th and final budget.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
I feel like we need to just like call it a day, right?
You?
Yes.
Well, Dan,
Thanks, Ken. Yep.
Yeah.
For everything you've done for the county,
Thanks.
all the headaches you've solved and caused.
I've done both.
All right.
Thanks, Dan.
Do you wanna take the work comp while I'm up here? Danny?
Yeah, we can do that.
In case you have any
I'll get you out of here.
There it is.
All right, workers' comp, as you know, is a separate fund. It's funded primarily with general fund transfers. So what we do is just project out the rest of this year to establish a beginning fund balance for next year. And we mostly take averages as to what we've spent the last few years for the expenses. And the claims, I did talk to Dan about the claims, they came in a little bit lower than what we have here, but he anticipated some higher claims.
We've got a few claims that are still out there that, a couple of them may be kind of expensive to close out. But the biggest change is we don't have the jail on our work comp anymore. And so our accident rates have gone down significantly. Our claims dollars have gone down significantly. And so that's a positive for the work comp fund. Also, our stop loss insurance is based off payroll classifications and law enforcement, which includes the jail, has been one of the significant ones. Because that's not on there now, when we do our audit at the end of the fiscal year on payroll dollars, we will probably get a pretty substantial refund on our work comp premiums, and then hopefully for this next year, our premiums will be quite a bit less as well, that we will pay for this next fiscal year. So, all in all, I think our work comp numbers should be in pretty good shape.
If only we were actually saving that money.
I know, right? We're still paying.
I just wanted to
Just
remind
not in
everybody.
here.
We're just not having
We're just shifting.
Yeah, it's probably more, because we separated it.
Yeah.
And being self-funded, we do have to budget $1 million in this fund, we have to show that. So that's where we get the 540,000 in yellow for the general fund transfers, keep us right at that $1 million.
And we've been able to close out several pretty large claims this year through mediation and looking at jumpers and our work comp attorney and getting those things done and off the books. So.
Good. Anything else? Thanks, Dan. All right, review FY 21-22 estimate of needs for IT. Is that Rich? How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Well,
So far.
we'll see.
This is painless today.
So I'll start with salaries first. We are asking for an extra position. Going into the new fiscal year, we're looking at being able to add another web developer because we're bringing website back in-house. We feel there's gonna be enough work and justification to bring someone in. That's a competitive salary level. It's not too far out of whack, and it's not too much one way or the other. We feel it's a pretty fair price. It's what we pay our programmer. We've got a little bit of, the benefits went up, and that's pretty much all we're doing in salary. Any questions about salary part?
Now, have we taken over doing our own web stuff, or you're going to do that?
We are taking over doing our own stuff.
close.
Okay.
It's almost live.
Okay.
How much was that yearly contract?
The yearly contract was
About
going to be
56K.
$56K. That will not be on for next year.
On your salary
Uh-huh.
sheet, on your new position where it says web developer 2,
Yes.
make sure you, never mind.
Just no problem.
Just make sure you do exactly what you did.
Yes, sir. No problem, sir.
I'll make sure I read it right.
Yeah, to be clear on the position itself, what we've done is, there's some part-time money that we just don't really need anymore. The information specialist position, you see, that position doesn't exist now. That was eliminated in August. And
The DBA three
the
position is also.
DBA three position that is budgeted for somewhere around a shade under 50K, costs us about 8 right now. We think we could probably eliminate that in the next year. So most of the money for the web developer two position is really kind of already there.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit of extra in benefits and so forth. My apologies for being late.
We're late, we're on time.
No.
Okay, so this is 20.
23 minus 2, add
Yeah.
1, you're
Yep.
at 22, and then, pardon me, what,
So, still.
Any other questions about the salary part so far?
No, go ahead and let's move on.
Okay. Moving over to the next is gonna be our M&L and capital. We did have an increase, we are projecting 5% pretty much for all, subscription services, for, support, things like that, that's a normal growth amount. That's been factored in on, before I go to capital, does anybody have any questions about the M&O portion? Okay. For capital, we did have, last year we were given $150,000, which we're gonna be lapsing back this year because we were not able to start the project. Since we didn't start the project, we're gonna lapse that money back, and then instead this year, we have got some solid numbers on doing the same project, so we're gonna ask for a little bit more money because we have found hardware and support with licensing. Did we factor licensing in there? I believe we did.
Not quite. We got some Microsoft licensing numbers finally yesterday evening, which is,
That we need
I'm
to add
sure,
to.
not reflected in this. So the goal was to, we're giving you back, we asked for 150 last year, we're giving you back that 150. Okay, this year we have to do it. The servers and the storage
going
both go
into
into life at the end of the calendar year, or towards the end of the calendar year. So right now, we don't have a firm idea on the three options we're looking at, whether it's local or cloud. We don't know which way yet we want to go, but using the numbers, what we've come up with is 200 for basically hardware. That would get us any of the three. It's likely that we would probably spend less than that, but that gives us a cushion to do what we need to do, whether it's cloud or on-prem. And that's that's servers and storage. Storage is expensive.
Yes.
That is the
At
most
that
of it.
level.
And then from a licensing point of view, that came in last night from Microsoft, assuming we need the data center license, which we believe we will.
Data center for servers, yeah.
Correct. That is another, for the first year, 106K. So what my thought was, is the numbers we were working off of for the most expensive local solution is about 157. So if we add another 110, which is roughly the Microsoft licensing, now you're about 265-ish to 270. What I'd like to do is tweak that 200 additional and just make it 270. And that gives us, I think, the cushion we need, regardless of which of the three directions we end up going. I think we can we're gonna shore up which way we wanna go before July 1st, but
Yeah.
monetarily speaking, the numbers are kind of,
We're basing that off our
Same.
best estimates and quotes that we've gotten so far from services we're looking into.
You said something interesting, servers, clouds.
Mhm.
Does
Yes.
that mean that you will still need all the space
at,
for the server racks that you got upstairs?
we don't need all the space that we know in the server racks today.
You have to remember, there's only 2 of those cabinets really that have our stuff in it. The rest of it is assessor, treasurer, county clerk.
There's a rack in the fridge, and even
Not all
still,
that's ours.
there's racks that could be consolidated.
Yeah.
And that would be a great time to do it and pull some hardware out of there. Now, what that means in terms of space in the data center itself, I can't answer that or what, but it can certainly be cleaned
Well,
up.
there's certainly people that need space, and you were
Sure.
talking about remote
Yeah,
at one point, so.
yes, and we've had that conversation too. I have one more piece to add to that. You took me off my game.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Apologize.
The cost, this 157K, if we go with the HP solution, those are yearly costs. What we've done is, it was asked of us a few years ago if we could do any kind of leasing or stuff like that, rather than doing a big hardware purchase
So we
up
have
front.
a flat cost every year.
Right, so that 157 or so is HP, I believe the answer was 157. I believe the Nutanix, if we went that way, was somewhere in the 112 to 130 range, licensing notwithstanding. But that is a yearly cost for 3 years. At year 4, we pay $1, we own it if we want to go that route. The cloud option is it's an interesting option. I don't know that we're quite ready to make that big giant leap and move everything to the cloud.
And that was kind of my concern on it was
Right.
we're used to doing things on premise here with the right stuff. I don't know that just coming out of the year we've had, Dan and I don't know that it's the best idea to completely shift the way we do compute, storage,
Everything.
and offloads,
All at once.
because it would be a massive change.
But if we lease at the $130,000 or
That'd be a flat
$150,000, instead of buying it all up front now, if we do that and in year 2 or in year 3, you're ready to go cloud,
Right.
then we haven't invested the full
That's
Correct.
correct. And we
$500,000
can
into the
return.
infrastructure.
Correct. And the idea is maybe what we do in maybe at the end of year 1 after everything is built, maybe we take our tests in our dev environment and move that to the cloud, because that could be done
Yeah.
relatively inexpensively
And less pain-free.
and less pain-free, and a great place to, well, test it, it's test and dev. I mean, if we tear stuff up and test and dev, we just push it back, so the cost, it doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, it sounds like you need to update this.
Yes.
Yeah, we do need to tweak that just a little.
Yeah, I would like to add, I think the number 70K to capital.
So just get with Kelly. Kelly, can you make a mental note on that IT's gonna get an adjusted estimate of needs to you, and then you can bring it back and we can receive an updated estimate. Are there any other questions that anybody has based on this? All right.
Yeah, one more just tiny additional piece, on the Microsoft licensing piece, that first part for data center, the first year is like 106,000, that's the number we got. You're paying software assurance in years 2 and 3, I mean, like, you know how those work.
Which is less.
Which is less, about a third of the cost, so it's not like we need the 270
Every
probably
single year.
every single year, it will come down in year 2 and year 3. So, that's it, all we got, it's not a lot, really, other than the big number.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, review FY 21-22 estimate needs for criminal justice authority. This is not attached to the agenda.
No,
I think it's been emailed out though, so let's go ahead and get a motion to receive the document.
A motion to receive the criminal justice estimated needs for fiscal year 21-22.
Got a motion, and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. All right, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
I thought, and we can go in any way you want, but I thought there's a lot of materials that I've shared with you, and I thought at this point, maybe I would review kind of the key drivers of the budget, and we can take a deeper dive into any of the items that you wish to, but really start with the key items of revenue and expenses. And I'll start with, on the first 3 pages is a monthly projection of our budget for this coming fiscal year, by line item by month. And then pages 4 and 5, in case you haven't had the opportunity to look at it, are just some of the key assumptions that are driving the numbers in the budget. And then beyond that are some just supporting documents. So starting on page 1 with just the revenue line items, obviously, it's sorted in order of from largest to smallest. So by far the largest source of revenue for the jail is the general fund from Oklahoma County. And our request for this year is $37.2 million. That is up $3.9 million from where we are the trend for this year. All of that requested increase is to be used to fully fund the staffing at the jail. And I'd like to speak to that in a little bit in more detail in just a bit.
And real quick though,
Sure.
the 3.9, is that taking into account the 900,000 that was recently for that one time?
Yes, it does.
Okay, because it's actually closer to $5 million increase off of what we budgeted for you.
That's correct. And I should have made that clear in my notes and I didn't, so good catch. Yes, it's up
4.8, yeah.
Yes, yeah. This number, the trend, fiscal year trend of $33.3 million that you see in column R, that's actually That does include the 923 that you received last month for the locks, the doors, and hinge project, So, and again, all of that is to be used, substantially all of it is to be used to fund, to fully get the jail staff fully funded up to 400 persons. And again, I'll speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah, please, go
Yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead, because my question though, when you say fully fund the staffing, I mean, we funded you for 400, so, and that's what you're asking for now is 400. So are you talking about additional, like, pay increases, or, because, I mean, we had funded you for 400.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that it's clear that we didn't not fund you for
No,
400.
you didn't, that's correct, that's correct. That was in our budget, that was consistent with the budget we had last year. And there's the assumptions on page, it's on page 12 of the attachment is, yes, right there, Kelly, thank you. It's what's driving the personnel. We'll just go ahead and jump to that. It's really, that's the key driver of our assumptions. So right now, this is as of a recent personnel census, our average compensation, full-time comp, is just under $39,000. That's inclusive, we gave a 10% pay increase across the board to all staff. That's inclusive of that. That's our current average salary for our full-time employees. And we slice and dice this a number of different ways, but again, when you look at it, the budget for 400 full-time staff at that average compensation level, it's $15.5 million if and when we get up to 400. Right now, as we know, we're significantly under that. We're at 330, so we have a ways to go. The part-time numbers, most of we are spending now about $47,000 a month for part-time staff. Most of that is hospital watch, and that's not likely to go away. So it's really most of that staff is not on site at the detention center. It's contracting for hospital watch. The overtime, right now we're spending about $25,000 a month in overtime, and a lot of that is due to the shortage of full-time staff. Our expectation is as we get the numbers up, that overtime number will decrease. And I took it down to half. That could be argued. You could take it down even further perhaps, but there probably will always be some. But our expectation is that the overtime numbers will decrease as we get our staffing numbers up.
So speaking of your staffing numbers, we're talking about 400. How many of those are admin type positions versus how many are actual DOs, boots on the ground, on pod floors, that kind of stuff?
We have in admin, and it's perhaps a little, I'm gonna paint with a broad brush here, Cody, and I could get more detail for you in a bit. We've got 190, right now, this is as of March 7th, the census we did, we have 350 full-time staff. Of those, 196, almost 200 were detention officers. So on the pods, on the floors, we had 18 maintenance and technicians, that's Dale Fry and his group in maintenance. And then we had what I would call admin and clerks, 136. And that includes Greg Williams and the admin team to all the clerks, front office and such as that. So right now we have about, we did have 196 detention officers. And that's clearly our greatest need. And so.
So right now, I think what you had here was you got 327 current, but is that still accurate, the 327?
It is, as of 2 days ago.
Okay, so you would like to, you're short 63 from what you're funded. Of those 63, how many of those fit into those three categories? Are you short admin? Are you short maintenance folks? Are you short DOs?
We're short DOs.
So all 63?
All six, I would say for the most part, yes. I mean, there probably are some clerk and admin positions, but by far the majority is DOs. That's what we need. To maintenance and technicians, I think we're good. I think Dan would say so as well. He's got a good team. It's detention officers that we need, and that we're actively and aggressively recruiting. And we're, again, if this is not relating to the numbers, but just to kind of speak, if I might, just on some of the things we're doing to get there, because it's clear we're behind where we need to be. And so our thought was the 10% compensation increase that was given to the staff we thought was necessary. It's not sufficient, but it's gonna be necessary to provide competitive and attractive starting salary, because it's a tough job, no question about it. But an important job. So we wanted to get the base starting salary to where we thought was competitive and attractive. Internally, we've assigned more staff to recruiting, to kind of get outside the building and go to job fairs, VOTEX, colleges, and meet with placement advisors, to start, to do a better job and a more aggressive job of informing people about opportunities for careers at the DC. We'll be expect perhaps as early as next week to implement an incentive for existing employees, for our current employees, to identify their friends, their circle of friends, who they think would be a good fit, because we think our staff will know better than anybody else who would be a good fit at the jail, and offer an incentive to them to bring in people. And if they stay for a period of time and make it, then that would be an incentive for the employee. Externally, we'll be doing more advertising, billboards, social media. I think we'll be getting some guidance from HR professionals outside the jail on ways we can recruit and retain talent. And then, retention, it's not just bringing people in. It has traditionally been, corrections as understandably a fairly high turnover occupation. And so we want to reduce that as much as possible. And so we'll be implementing very soon kind of a career progression pathway for employees, so that people who come in as a cadet, they can see a pathway toward advancement, additional responsibility, and additional compensation increase if they hit certain benchmarks and stay. So we want to make it a place where people can come and have a career.
Okay, so the increase in salary, we've established that you're asking for the same number of employees that you got last year.
Yes.
And so the increase that you need for salary dollars is just associated with, it's pretty easy. You got a dollar amount times the number of employees equals how much you need. You're not changing the number of employees, you're just changing the amount per employee.
Correct.
And you guys recently did a 10% increase, as you mentioned. Is this contemplating additional increases, or is this annualizing that 10% that you already done? Okay.
It went into effect on February 1st, so our thought is we're good. And we've got a competitive starting wage for people. So
Okay.
it is not anticipating further increase this year.
And then you mentioned the average personnel cost is $38,779. Is that the average for DOs? I'm assuming it's not, because you got all three categories. Do you know what the average
I do.
cost is?
The average cost for DOs is $40,000, just over $40,300 for that 196 positions I mentioned.
Okay.
The average for technicians is actually the highest, it's $48,500. And the average for admin and clerks is $35,300. It's not in here, but I'm happy to send it to you.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure that I'm able to make sense of the numbers. Okay.
Do you know what the salaries were, just specifically the salaries last year that was adopted? I don't know, maybe I'm overlooking it. I don't know if you had it handy or not.
The salaries.
Yeah,
Total budget?
just the salary portion for FY21.
I did. That should be in my packet, yeah. It's on page.
Was that the 13,182,343?
Okay. Okay.
Really, that's what drives this budget, is getting our staffing levels up to where we believe they need to be. And we're well aware we're not there. And to me, it's for all of us, not just Greg Williams or HR director, but for all of us, it's the highest priority to get where it needs to be.
Well, and I know, Miles, you start thinking back, as we were on the jail transition, or not the transition trust, the one before that, the jail trust committee. One of the driving factors of looking at moving towards a trust was the different options as far as revenue sources that a trust would be able to bring in from the funding side, whether it's, managing sales tax dollars or whatever the case may be. That was one of the big driving factors. Do you know, is the trust looking at anything as far as enhancing other revenue areas to offset the cost to the county?
Not other than what's in this budget, no. I can speak to Chair Edwards, but to my knowledge, no, it's the items we have here, of course, you know, with the jail phone and commissary and these other things.
Right, those are all traditional funding
Traditional.
sources that we've had. We,
And I-
what we had talked about was with the trust, they'd be able to come in and have different enhancements as far as funding streams that the county itself
Okay.
could not do. You recall those?
Right, so one of the things that I know that they're looking at are the rates with municipalities that they're charging. So that's a different, that'll possibly increase, on that stream. Now, it's a traditional stream, but those rates have traditionally been extremely low. So they're looking at that. Now, of course, they've been able to take in DOC and then had a lot of DOC. I do not know that they will continue to do DOC in the future. I don't know anything about that. That may be an opportunity that presents itself that they haven't had in the past couple of years for another revenue stream. Specifically when it comes to a tax of any sort.
Or bonding.
Or bonding, I do not know if those discussions have happened. That kind of gets to our economic development package that we pay for every year, and we're told every year that I've been here, that this year's not your year to go out for a revenue stream.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but
Well,
it's our year.
we need to find something else because
Yeah.
even if it's municipality rates or state DOC rates being changed, or even if it's not being changed, we're housing more. But, I mean,
So the
if we
DOC
remember back 5 or 6 years, the problem with those funding streams is, and Brandon, you were here, Major Anderson was here under Wetzel when you were making a lot of money on that.
Yeah.
Problem is, when the feds or the state or whoever decides, hey, we're not doing this anymore, we're rolling back, then you've established your everything based upon those dollars, and then it evaporates overnight, and then you're stuck in a lurch. So that's where those types of funding mechanisms, while they help as an ancillary funding source to be able to take care of onesie and twosie items, as far as budgeting on that and getting used to it, I think it's been proven that that's a failed way of planning on budgeting. So I'm looking more at the bonding capacities, sales tax, that kind of stuff. I think we're on the same page, Miles. I just was wondering if there's any talks behind the scenes, because we're seeing, it's really a $4.8 million general fund increase request based upon what was given last year, and having, rolling over 1.75 million. It's close to $7 million more package here than what we looked at the beginning of last fiscal year, and just trying to figure out a way that we can sustain it.
No, I get it. That increase though, there are some, we had a carryover, it would be offset by carryover from FY 1920, which when we carried over about $700,000 from FY 20, and then the June receipts of roughly $820,000. That was a one-time increase. But your point, I understand your point. We want to look at any and all alternate revenue sources that we can. So I'm not aware of any discussions, but I'll inquire.
Okay, thank you. And then do you have, if you don't have it handy, that's fine, if you can send it, the $1.7 million carryover that you're anticipating, do you know which categories those dollars are coming from? Salaries, benefits, M&O, capital?
Yes, I do, and that is on pages, that's.
I may have just missed that.
That's okay. 6, 7, and 8 is our forecast for the rest of the year. It's got our actual numbers through February, and then projected March, April, May this year. So, and I can speak to some of what's driving it, and again, much of that is personnel. We think we expect that our M&O expense is gonna come in really pretty close to what we budgeted. Capital will be up, it's really up because of the Willow, the doors and hinges project. Apart from that, we're coming in pretty close. So the increase, if you'll notice, again, on this page 6, The increase we've seen in set full-time salaries and wages, say from January to March, it's up about 10%. That's the 10% increase in compensation we get. It's not headcount increase, we're still flat down.
Right.
But our expectation is, and we're trying to budget for success, our expectation is that we will start to gradually see an increase in retention. We need to over the next few months. And so, that's where the numbers start to creep up in April, May, and June. So, and particularly in June, we will have to accrue for 10 days of pay and benefits that we earn that month but not paid until July. And that really is kind of a catch-up from the beginning of the year. So that explains the big bump in June. So the $1,725,000 or $735,000, pages 6, 7, and 8 kind of lay out the detail. And again, for the most part, personnel is what's driving.
And then I just have one more question related to the revenue section. Your row 12 CARES Act reimbursement, what is that? Can you refresh my recollection?
Yes, so, and there is, I do have a page there, on page 11, is a summary. This has been presented to the trust, and I can provide additional detail on all of these expenses if you like. I just didn't want to inundate you with detail. I've got backup for all of this. It's a summary of the CARES Act funds that we received last year from Oklahoma County. And the remaining projects are near completion, should be done, the water management project and the rest of them by either early May to the end of June. So they're near completion. Column B on that page, which totals just under $523,000. That's a summary of the COVID-related expenditures that were made from our operating fund that need to be reimbursed at some point from the CARES Act funds. And they were maintenance, personnel, and services, and a number of different categories like PPE and COVID supplies. So a lot of it was additional staff from our Summit Food Service for additional cleaning and sanitation, from Turnkey for additional COVID testing and things like that. So it's simply reimbursement from the CARES Act fund, which is separate to our operating fund. That hasn't happened yet, and our thought was we would do that once the projects are completed and we have.
So you're utilizing the CARES dollars that the county's already moved over, the 14 million, and you're gonna utilize 522,000 of that to offset those expenses?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's in here. That hasn't happened yet. But that's
I didn't know if you were gonna be asked, if you guys were needing more CARES dollars,
No,
that was,
this is just a reallocation of CARES Act funds to reimburse operating spend last year.
Okay, you had mentioned earlier, and I see this on here now, so I'll ask you now, on your CARES related expenses, the turnkey prices related to COVID, you had hospital watch. I know you had several inmates in the hospital with COVID.
Correct.
Have you looked at all of those expenses as far as CARES reimbursement? And if you don't have enough in the 14 million, we still have money sitting here in our CARES account, a little over $4 million. So whether it's the part-time that you're having to pay folks to sit on hospital watch, or whether it's the medical expenses, I noticed that you had an increase in your cap overage for inmates that are going out to the hospital. Those individuals that were in the hospital for COVID, those are reimbursable expenses from CARES. Have you guys done an analysis on that and to see what you could utilize CARES dollars for, whether it's your 14 million or whether it's coming back and requesting some more from the county?
Okay, I did not realize there were some additional dollars, so I appreciate your making us aware of that. We reached out to Turnkey, and they've given us an update through, I want to say, either December or January of all detainees, all inmates who were in the hospital with COVID. And so that number is in here. I think it's through December or January, but I'll find out. I can get an update from them, not realizing that there were perhaps some additional dollars available. I didn't pursue it further because it didn't seem like I didn't realize there were additional dollars that might be available to reimburse for that.
Yeah.
So I can find out and I'll be back in touch. I appreciate your letting me know.
I just want to make sure that these expenses that we can utilize CARES dollars for, and that's what we've done on our employee benefits. Mr. Wilkerson has done an analysis and figured out what expenses on our plan have been COVID related, and we're reimbursing our employee benefits account
Okay.
for those expenses. And so on your end, on the inmate side, we've already done it for your employees on the health plan, but from the inmates that are there and the medical expenses related, we should be able to capture those.
Okay, that's good to know, and I appreciate you letting me know, I'll be back in touch.
Okay.
And some of that, but not, I expect not all of it, I just don't know how much additional COVID, and the COVID numbers are down, which is good. I just don't know how much of the hospitalization experience we've had the last couple of months is COVID related, but Turnkey will let us know, it'll be good to respond, so I'll be sure to ask.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a point of note, on the way I'm reading on your actuals that you expect to spend for benefits on that month of June, I don't believe you'll actually have to pay an additional third of the month for health, but you will have to pay FICA, which you accounted for, but not on health, just as a point, you'll probably carry over a little bit more than you might anticipate there, and that probably.
That 413.
Yeah.
I think you're right, it's a good catch.
Probably ran the formula down.
I did. Okay, I'll make that adjustment, and if you'd like, I'll understand it's a lot. Well, if it's making $100,000, whatever,
Yeah, boy,
that's a good catch, thank you.
maybe one more, 10 days.
So we talked about, we jumped around a bit, but we've touched the revenue side. The main thing, we do have a new contract with our phone company, GTL and Telnet. The minimum annual guarantee has gone into effect, and that goes up to $1,250,000 this year. So that's reflected on row 8 of the revenue side. You mentioned, Miles, there are boarding contracts with municipalities. City of Oklahoma City is by far the largest, but we have 17 or 18 other smaller municipalities, but we average about $85,000 a month in revenue, and our assumption is that will stay unchanged. I know Mr. Williams has been in touch. That is.
The notes are on 4, but.
Hey Kelly,
It's
can you
gonna
pull up on page 9?
Page 9, yes. Page 9 has the detail.
I have a question about jail phone, so is that the
Yeah.
MAG that's on it now, so that's included of a minimum annual guarantee, and does that also roll that, previously in that contract, there was like a value added that they were to put X amount of money into a grant, so is that all rolled up into one now? Or is
It's
there-
all rolled up.
Okay.
There's no extra money
Okay.
for the grant. The $1,250,000 is there.
Okay.
Isn't there a breakdown on the daily rate that we charge in your budget that you submitted? For
No,
the municipality?
but I can get it for you. I don't have that at hand, Miles.
I was thinking there was. Brandon, do you remember what that is off the top of your head? What, for Oklahoma City? Melissa, was she, I thought I saw it, she was here with me. Yeah, she probably knew exactly what it was.
I don't know.
Mid-40s
It's,
probably.
I was
think
thinking
that's
it
right.
was,
At
we had
45,
46 or 47, somewhere in there.
It was higher
It's
than
been
the
a
jail
while
state
since we got
recovery. I know that.
Well, see, that's another thing that we've never done the right way. Once the JNS sheet is submitted, if we will actually take the time to document what it costs for each prisoner, we can get our actual per day cost by statute and proven by Supreme Court case as well. What was it, Bryan County versus, State of Oklahoma. So if we knew our actual costs and tracked our actual cost per inmate, which my understanding Jail Tracker will help do, if it does that, we should be submitting our full cost to DOC. And we should not be taking a $27 a day rate, which is what is statutory. But that's the first part of the statute. The second part is, or anything else that you can determine and prove what your cost is.
And that's where, when there's been suits that have been filed and they fail, is because there has not been an ongoing analysis of what the actual cost is. So, the Sheriff's Department in the past had a contract with MGT doing rate studies. I don't know if you guys are still doing that. Okay, and I would recommend, just personally, to keep doing that, because you can utilize those numbers not only on the billing side that you send off, but as an exhibit whenever you're potentially in a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So,
Our attorney, Mr. Williams, did work with MGT, and we just presented, I think, to Judge Elliott with it recently. I think the rate was unchanged, I think.
I love that hearing.
But one of the things we asked, I've not seen the report, but I would like to see their methodology. I don't know how they determine that rate, and I'd like to see what they use. I don't know if you've ever seen their
Yeah,
analysis.
It's pretty deep.
It is very
Deep dive?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got it, I'm sure
I have
Tommy's
it.
got it, I'm sure Timmy's probably still got it laying around, we've
Okay.
got it. There are definitely copies around,
We have them do it for our juvenile as well,
okay.
the detention side.
Well, that might be an opportunity.
But yeah, once they turn that in, and I think we submitted as part of the record.
Did you see there's a bill out there that's trying to get it to, we send the JNS notification over where that won't be good enough.
That's DOC doing that. They're trying to slow pay.
But it gets down to once they've been adjudicated, there is state charge. And we are utilizing ad valorem tax dollars to wholly or in part subsidize a state function, which is unconstitutional.
Speaking of DOC, our numbers were unusually high this year for a number of reasons, COVID being one of them. The trend is down. Right now, we're I think 106 or 104.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's down significantly, which is good.
Yeah.
And so we budgeted for 100. That's what we budgeted for last year, and the numbers were way high. And we generated, we'll generate, probably $900 or $1 million more than we expected. But we expect that to come back this year, right? Come back to more historical trends. We think that's a reasonable way to budget. And
And
hopefully
are
that's our
Are
experience.
they still talking with US Marshals and everybody else looking for bed space? Do you know anything about that?
I do not, Miles. I do not. So those are the main items on the revenue side. On expense, we talked about salaries and wages, of course. The payroll taxes and retirement are driven, they're a factor of the headcount that we project. Also, the insurance as well. Not all of our employees are on insurance, about 80%. So our assumption is if and when we get up to 400, a certain 80% will take the coverage. Right now we have, it's on I think page 13 is of your analysis is, there it is, thank you, Kelly. Yeah, that's as of 2 days ago. John gave me those numbers. We have 158 single and 114 family, and at 272 is about 80% of our total full-time count. The new costs, employer costs are in there. It says cost per employee, and that's a typo. It should be per employer. And so it's, again, that just is, those numbers are significant, and they're just driven by assumptions of our headcount. So, on the M&O side, it's up, we're budgeting up about 3.5%, and most of that is with the medical, is the prisoner care and prisoner care cap. We have a contract with Turnkey, and it's eligible to be renewed annually. Mr. Williams is in discussions with Turnkey. It has a cap of 2.85%. That's how much it went up last year, so that's the assumption that's in here. Nothing's been finalized yet, but that's the assumption on the offsite and the cap. It was budgeted at $1,450,000, and our numbers are up. We think it could be we're trending probably closer to $2 million in that, and in this fiscal year. It's averaging right now for the last 6 months. It averages about $173,000 every month for prescription and offsite medical care for detainees. So that's what we budget for. We budget $175,000, $2.1 million, and hopefully we can keep it there.
We've been at what, 1.5, I think, was our cap before.
Yeah.
And we budgeted extra in case we went over, but we didn't top that the last 2 or 3 years.
And the last two months in particular have been just unusually large. We've had, I think, over $200,000 in each of the last 2 months. So, it's somewhat of an unknown. Just don't know what your experience is going to be.
Well, you can certainly offset a bunch of that, like Cody said, if you will find out how much of that expense is COVID related.
That's a good call. We'll do that.
That's gonna help offset that number a lot, I'm sure.
Other items, our detainee food, we think it depends on of course, the detainee count. but, we came in under budget this year, we're expecting, we budgeted $175,000 a month, that's a little bit more than we're spending this year. As if our head count goes down, the tandy count goes down, of course, the cost per meal goes up, so we think that's a reasonable number to budget for. Insurance, Mr. Matthews had mentioned that earlier, you know, we have our workers' comp, that's on, I think, probably on page 1. We have workers' compensation insurance, we have already gotten a quote and a renewal, because it renewed on April 1st from OESA, and so those premiums, apart from an audit, are $820,000 in this coming year. And then our right line of 53 above that, our insurance, liability, property, and auto. By far the largest component of that is the law enforcement liability. And the premium that last year was $245,000. We're in the process of getting quotes and working with the Beckman Company on renewals for that. Haven't heard back yet. So I have a placeholder here, $350,000. I'm expecting it'll go up, but I don't have anything back from them yet. So those are the big drivers of M&O. On capital.
Can I ask you on M&O 2 questions? Row 117 and 118, those seem to be pretty high numbers and pretty significant over last year's budgeted. One of them's professional services legal at $30,000 a month, and the other one was auditing, and I think it was up like $58,000.
It is, and the auditing is, I'll speak to the auditing first. We've engaged with RSM to do our fiscal year, it's a 2-year engagement, FY20, which should be wrapping up soon, and then the fiscal year we're in now. And then Crawford & Associates, who I think works with the county now to help prepare financial statements to be audited. So we've engaged with RSM and Crawford to assist us, and that's what's in this budget. It represents their fees total of about, I think about $100,000, $108,000 for auditing and accounting services from both RSM and Crawford. And then on the legal, it's consistent with our average from last year. We're averaging right now about $30,000 a month in legal fees. That's to our counsel, John Michael Williams and his firm, and then lately, Gable Godwalls. We've spent a fair amount with them on various legal matters. So.
But that doesn't include the attorney that you guys employ.
That's correct.
On salary, right?
That's correct. Megan, she's on staff with us. That's correct.
Okay.
And then, any other questions on that?
Not on that.
Okay.
Hey, oh, sorry.
Sure.
On the telecommunications supplies, I thought that was under your phone lines.
I'm sorry,
You've
Mike,
got-
which line item?
Oh crap, she moved it around on me. Just scroll up a little bit.
73?
Yes. Tell you what, I'll get back, there it is right there, it's line 82, 54, 155. Is that not part of your phone contract, or is that a different set of phones?
Those are.
It just seems a lot of money for phone supplies. I know it's not nitpicking the 3,000.
No. It adds up. So let me find out exactly what that is, Miles. I'll be happy to get back to you specific. I should have brought that detail with me. I didn't, so I apologize. And as you go through this, of course, if you have any other questions, just let me know, and I'll report back to you on that. On capital, on page 3, we did include 2 items. One being the jail control system, which we were presented about a couple of months ago. We have a quote from a vendor to replace the jail control system, which we all know is an aging and at-risk system. The quote is for $440,000. And we've added to that a 15% contingency, which gets us to 506. Our IT director, Kevin Marble, is soliciting other quotes. I think this is the preferred vendor at this point, but he's soliciting quotes from other potential vendors. But at this point, he feels like that's the right number to budget for. Of all the items that we had spoken about before, that one replacing that jail control system, we feel is right out the top of the list.
Is that quote that you have, is it a solid quote?
It is. I have a copy of it here, and I'm
Okay.
happy to share it.
Then why are we including a 15% contingency if it's a solid quote?
Well, I think he just wants to make sure, I mean, I'll, probably should defer to Kevin on that.
I mean, if it's like an Amazon price quote to where prices change regularly, but if this is something that is a, in stone quote, I just don't understand why we'd include a 15%, especially on that large of an item. And that didn't have anything to do with the recent 932,000. I know we did some jail locks and there was some control panels and stuff that wasn't related to this.
If it's not related,
Okay.
not related. I'll be happy, let me go back to Kevin, and I'll be happy to do that and amend this if we need to. And I'll just, it was his recommendation to include that, but if we need to take that out, I'll be happy to do that. So I'll report back to you on that as well.
And my other question on your other item, the data center upgrade, it's really kind of related to that one as well. We talk all the time with our IT department on lease versus purchase and this kind of equipment. If we do get into a situation where we can have a new facility, the control system may not be conducive to another facility, right? And same thing with your data center. Have you guys looked at potentially leasing instead of purchasing equipment? So
I think
that
he
we're not-
has, and let me talk with him about
Okay.
that. I think, let me report back to you on that as well, because that's, if and when a new facility were to happen, we want to make sure we haven't invested more money than we should in the
Right.
facility.
Flexibility is important.
Right.
Flexibility comes with a cost sometimes,
Right.
and you just have to analyze if it's worth that extra cost. But
Okay, I can find out and pretty sure we'll. Those are the two main items on the, on capital. You were funded vehicles for us last year, so there's nothing else needed there. We do have, we still have a number of aging, computer monitors and, just computer hardware that continues to need to be replaced. Mr. Marble has done a good job of doing that. We spent about $250,000, or expect to, this year replacing aging and end-of-life computers, and he would like to include about $175,000 for additional computer upgrades, equipment upgrades, because there's still a lot of them that just every week he says they go out. So that's the purpose of that.
still got XP machines.
Yes, I think so. So I really kind of touched on, I've thrown a lot at you and happy to, I've got some questions I need to report back to give you some answers on, and I'll promise you that right away. I'm not sure what your time frame is, but I'll get back to you, and if not tomorrow, by Monday.
I appreciate it.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Capital related?
Yeah.
The list that we looked at a couple months ago, I thought it totaled like 5.8, and then we did the 923 for some locks.
Right.
What from that list made it to here?
Both of the items, the jail
The
control
two
system.
that you just touched on?
Yes, both of those were on the list.
Okay. So there's things that you're not gonna pursue next fiscal year?
Well, there are
capital-wise.
things that still need to be done, but we just did not incorporate them into this budget. And to the extent there may be funds available, either federal funds or some other funding source, we'd like the opportunity to come present. But our decision was not to put all that into this, because really our number one need is people. And that's, the dollars are not unlimited, we're well aware of that. So we felt like the very best thing we can do for the jail right now is to make sure we're fully staffed. It doesn't mean we still have a lot of deferred capital needs, and we're well aware of it, but we'll just do what we can and within the funds that are available.
Number two is that jail control system, for sure.
Gotcha.
Brandon, did you have something?
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
Under the employee benefits, your estimate for this coming year is 4.7. Does that take into account the increase in the employee benefits cost and the possibilities of hiring from 330 to 400 employees? It looks like the number is lower than I might have anticipated.
It does include that, Brandon.
Okay.
It's, on page 13, I don't know if you have that in front going to be, but it does include the higher monthly cost that's going into effect on July first. And then, again, right now, not all of our employees are on insurance, so we're at about 80% of them. That's our assumption. We get to 400, roughly our assumption here is not all of our new hires will take insurance. And so we had to make some assumptions that, assuming the historical insurance hold 80% of it, so we've got about 300, right now, 312.
Yeah, I wrote down about 82% of about the number we were at, okay.
Yeah, that's where we are too.
Well, I know this is mostly about estimate of needs, but your carryover's related, so, just wanna make sure, if you were able to wave a magic wand and get an additional 63 employees in there for the rest of the fiscal year tomorrow, you've got plenty of money in there to pay for those employees, right?
Correct.
Because that 1.7 is money that you saved previous, you still have money budgeted at 400, and like your increased medical expense, you wouldn't have any of that for new hires. If you hired them today, they wouldn't be eligible until July 1 at the minimum, so you've got plenty of funds.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. You have funded us sufficiently for where we are right now, and again, we just wanted to present a budget, honestly, budget for success. We intend to get there, and this is what we think it will be going to cost them before, but we're not there yet. We're well aware of that. But you're right, we have the funds right now to go get the people. That's what we're going to do. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Anybody else? You?
Right.
Miles, you got anything?
Anything else I got, I'll maybe not later.
Okay, I owe several of you responses on these, and I'll promise to get back with you promptly on that.
All right, Mark, I really appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Answering all the questions.
Happy to do it. And the other thing I would say is if you're interested and have time, come pay us a visit. We really, we'd like to show what's happening. A lot of good things. You don't always read about it, you don't always hear about it, but a lot of good things are happening at the detention center. So if you're at all interested, it's an open invitation. Call me, call Chair Everest or any of the trustees, Mr. Monday, Mr. Williams, anytime, and we'd like to happy to show what's going on there. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, review FY 21-22 estimate of needs for county sheriff. Brandon, you have the floor.
I've been practicing, so hopefully I can get this thing under 2 hours. Hey, don't get me in trouble.
He's just sitting behind you.
Yeah. So, we'll start with general fund. So last year, our total ask was 11,722.41. This year, we are requesting 12,392.288. So that is a difference of 672. So some of the differences that you'll see that are line itemed out. Since the sheriff has taken over in January, we've made some significant changes to increase some efficiency. And so, so one of the things that we've done is we have actually dropped our actual current FTEs from the 169 we asked for last year to 163. Some of those changes that have been made are after the attorney had left, we made some decisions to not backfill that. The chaplain position has been ripped. We had a retirement that happened in the personnel office. We're not going to backfill that spot. There was a position out of fleet and maintenance that was ripped, and we have restructured the community services administration staff, which lowered us at 3 FTEs. So that's the difference that you see there. So so those changes have resulted in a salary savings of $404,000. We wanted to be entirely transparent, so instead of just shuffling the staff around, we wanted to, show where we had reduced those staff numbers, but then also with those changes, we also want to add more boots to the ground in 2 different areas. One is protective services, so that consists of our courthouse. So the deputies you see running around the annex and the courthouse, then also patrol. We'd like to put 4 more on patrol, that's 1 per shift, but we'd like to put 3 more at the courthouse. So if we were to do that, last year's FTE ask was last year's FTE adoption was 169. With the changes that were made and adding those, positions back in if they were granted, would actually put us just +1 at 170. For benefits, for some reason in benefits last year, we were really low during the time of the estimates of need. We had 128 that were taking insurance at the time. The actual numbers as of this February were 141, so that's a pretty substantial difference. And again, those are things we can't control. They just, probably employees that swapped out, maybe they were on, different insurance, maybe they weren't on, these actually weren't on insurance at all. So new hires or whatever the case may be, it changed by 13 people. And making the assumption that if we were to plug in those 7, that would get us up to 148. So at the time of this, we were probably actually a little bit higher, to be honest, because those people that have resigned or are separated from employment, they were probably actually, I know that some of them were in that number. So even though we're at 141, that number is probably actually higher, if that makes sense, from the time that we made this budget. So that's really the driver for our benefits is essentially what, if those 7 positions are approved, which would essentially be a 20 FTE increase over what we were allotted last year plus the 11% increase. For travel, last year we were approved for 13,200, which included mileage for both the sheriff and the undersheriff. This year we're just going to ask for the statutory allowance for the sheriff. Cell phones for M&O, cell phone stipend software is going to remain the same. This year we have made a change to M&O, and once we get to our service fees, you'll see why we're asking for this. But I actually brought some show and tell. So actually, always I got that.
Oh.
Mine is just when I save money, I'm telling you.
I'm proud of you, money, yeah.
Yeah. So
He even did it.
Now Danny down there waiting.
Two-sided.
Two-sided. Hey,
Yeah, boy.
everything we can do, right? So probably need to make a motion to receive this document, so I'll move that.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
All right, so what what this one document is, it actually represents 2 different things. So it kind of just provides some history on why we're asking for 100,000 in transportation and 300,000 for motor vehicle fuel. So the first document that's got all the mileage numbers on there, those are the total numbers of mileage that we've driven over the past 4 fiscal years when we estimate this year in. So what I did is I kind of extrapolated that out. I took those 4 years and I took an average of those 4. So we're going to make the assumption based on those last 4 averages that we're going to drive 2.3 million miles this year. Our fuel man tells us that we're on average about 15 miles per gallon for the vehicles. So I just calculated how many gallons of fuel we estimate we're going to need for FY22 and estimated fuel price. I have no idea what that number is really going to be. So I gave you a couple of scenarios, $2.50 and $3 a gallon. Of course, we get a discount because we buy it from Fuel Man. So I mean, the numbers are pretty substantial.
Is that why you brought your 8-mile, 90-gallon?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So those, all those numbers, you can see what the actual fuel costs were that we spent for FY18, 19, 20, and 21 estimated. So it looks like we will probably have, not be shocked to see fuel over $3 a gallon. So I would definitely think that we're going to see an increase there.
And that fuel man, that takes, that's what we pay, right? That's without all the taxes and everything.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've always been curious how long those work.
Yeah. They incorporate all our discounts and everything right on the bill. So.
Hey, you've been paying for fuel, so you've been paying for it out of a different budget, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
All this, so previously, all of our, all of our fuel and all of our, prisoner extradition was paid for out of service fees.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that it looks like an increase, it's just an increase on this budget, but their expenses that have been occurring.
And again, once we get to 1160, there are some of this expenses also contemplated in that as well.
Okay.
The backside of your sheet, speaks to the extradition costs that we're experiencing. In FY18, we spent a total of $112,830. FY19, we spent $130,151. FY20, you can see $165,492. This year, we expect it to drop a little bit, $156,307. I really don't know what the total extradition costs are gonna be. Kind of throw a 20% increase in there because I imagine things are gonna pick up. This year, we were a little bit slower than normal. I wanna explain the FY21, because that looks messier than the other ones. So the actual cost to date that we've spent is $186,204. However, and I've actually been updated on this number, since I was able to prepare this, but, so the actual cost that we spent out of our bank to the company that does these extraditions for us is $186,204. However, 82,000 of that was purely based on COVID. So essentially what they did is they were having some issues with their company, and so they said, well, instead of just charging you from here to the place that it's going, now we're charging you from Kansas to here, from here to the place, and then from that place back to Kansas where they're headquartered. So essentially, a lot of our stuff was being, in some cases, double mile.
Yeah.
So, that might be something that, we submit for reimbursement as well. So just, I guess it's on this agenda item, but just kind of wanted to, put that out there.
It affects everything.
Right.
The rollover and all of that, so yeah,
Right.
I think that's something we should look at.
So with that, I guess, we prepared a document that shows every single trip where they charge us more, and I'm not gonna submit every one of those invoices unless this group just wants to see them, but I'll submit a few examples to show you what the difference is. That way it's pretty easy, and I can submit that online for.
Well, that's just an unbudgeted related cost,
Correct.
and that's clearly.
So with that said, that ended in March. So we're not gonna experience any more of those COVID costs. So we knew that it was there, but we kinda wanted to wait to see how long they were gonna continue charging us for that, especially since they, had increased the length of time we can use that money. So if that's reimbursed through CARES dollars, our actual year to date would be 104,204. Again, extrapolating that out, trying to figure out what the rest of the year is, we're looking to spend about 156,307 in actual dollars, from the county.
Yeah,
And
let's
that's
work on that reimbursement.
All of that is contracted now, you're not crossing straight lines anymore and doing that.
No, we still do.
You still do?
Yeah.
Or is that going to a different fund, or is that a question later?
Well, and no, all those salaries are in, so actually, if you look on the salary comp sheet of the budget, it's all those guys that are under, or employees that are under process and travel. So it's all those employees.
Oh, okay.
That are under, process and travel.
Yeah, okay.
So now, they don't just do extraditions, they also do, various things around the county, court process for specific Oklahoma County, but there are some guys and girls that are on the travel team.
Okay.
So, and then, for capital, we, did not ask for anything last year, we're not asking for anything this year. Generally speaking, for capital, we try to use 1160, 1161. So really, overall, the number looks a lot larger than it really is, but if you were to take out, the increased cost to employee benefits, really the ask is $187,000 higher. It's essentially all driven by the 487,000 number. One thing I actually forgot to point out, or maybe I pointed this out, but even if we were to add back in those 7 FTEs, our total salary ask would be down 125,000 what we asked for last year. So, I really feel like we've done our part, as far as, identifying solutions, and when I say we, I mean purely the sheriff, and under sheriff, so, really trying to evaluate some of those things we can change, make it more efficient, and I think that the numbers evidence that, so.
Can't get rid of attorneys though, come on.
Hey, that's why we got you.
Get rid of all of them.
I'm just kidding, it's remarkable, it's really impressive.
So, does anybody have any questions about general fund?
No, sir.
If so, don't call me or ask me, I don't know.
That's our
So,
one chance.
yes, this is your one chance, yeah.
We blew it.
So
You
11.
asked me, I will ask you.
Right. So 1161, that's our, or I'm sorry, 1160. Just kidding, sorry. I can count in order, I promise. So this is the account that we, kind of do all the stuff that's not really funded out of general fund in. I mean, that's kind of the long and the short of this. The reason for that is because this fund, really doesn't have any restrictions to speak of, except for the courthouse security portion of it. There's two separate funds that are under 1160. There's just a general fund, that's a bad term to use. There's kind of a normal 1160, then there's one that's specifically for courthouse security. So, I mean, really, you know, our expenses are, you know, all outlined there. We will, for the salaries portion of it, there is an additional increase on the salaries. And so one thing I want to point out on that, it looks like that number is heavily inflated. So the reason that number is up is because last year, as the board knows, the COLA and the merit raises were thrown into general fund M&O. So that is just a reflection of that, at least 80 something thousand of that is being absorbed into the other side. Some more, another part of that raise, the treasurer requested a pay increase for the deputies over that's in that department. PDA requested a pay increase. So that is all rolled in there. Of course, those are covered. Those are pass-throughs essentially. One thing I'd like to point out as well is last year, the salary number was correct for community service, but for some reason the FTEs weren't. We've had 18 SROs all year long, so I'm not sure why that was, you know, why I reported that way, or why it showed up on our estimates of need that way. I just wanted to let you know that it's 18 for 18 there. So so that the actual reduction from 39 to 36 is not a real number, just in full transparency. Of course, the OCCJA, it's the Criminal Justice Authorities, MOU, that houses, or that contemplates 4 court holding employees that work on the 11th floor, and 6 transportation deputies. So we provide the van, we provide the deputies. So that's what that entails. Of course, there's a benefits increase associated with that. I think that's pretty standard for everybody.
What was mentioning it, if we do a COLA and merit-based pay increase, keep in mind that contract, that'll affect your pay for those employees, so then you just need to modify that contract with the Criminal Justice Authority.
Appreciate it. So really, there's, again, I don't think there's anything nothing stands out over what we did last year. In addition to what I submitted in general fund, you'll see on 54029, that's the other 87,000 that I provided on that sheet. And then we put another 100,000 in fuel. So between the 300,000 and 100,000 gets us to 400,000, and hopefully that would be enough. But if not, we may have to.
Have you heard of a Prius?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
They had the police model?
Yeah. They probably make them.
That's probably.
I'll be electric soon.
Like Tesla. Get the Tesla.
Yeah, you see the price tag on those things. It's,
I will negotiate.
Yeah. State contract Tesla. Does anybody have any questions on 1160? 1161, that is what we know as special revenue. Special revenue consists of quite a few different things. It has our drug fund, our federal asset forfeiture, training fund. It has 911 fees, an interest-bearing account, of course. So we don't really. It's hard for us to project what we might bring in from that account because we just simply don't know. It's purely based on, you know, I mean, whatever the statutory requirement is or allowances for that particular fund. So generally speaking, in this fund, this is where we try to sustain vehicle purchases. And so we don't pay anybody out of 1161. We don't have many M&O costs, if any. We try not to do anything M&O related out of this fund. Only where 1160 fails, we would try to use 1161. But you'll notice under capital outlay, we have some motor vehicles, that are under there. We are looking to purchase some vehicles, and try to change over some of our fleet. Of course, that's all gonna be done in-house. That's with our own finances. And we're looking at trying some creative stuff there to make vehicle acquisitions, so.
Is this do you know how many this 393 represents?
So that particular number, will represent 30, and so the reason for that is we're going to look at doing a lease program rather than, purchasing them outright. And so that would give us the ability to do a couple things. I think it'll drive down our maintenance costs. We're spending far too much money in various maintenance things, over and above, oil, tires, fuel, that sort of stuff. Allow us to keep these vehicles under warranty. So our hope is that if we can start this program, get it off the ground, as they come up further, when they start the mileage out of their warranty, we're hoping that we can sell these things with a decent amount of mileage on them, or a low amount of miles on them compared to the way that we're doing it now. We just sell them when they're just totally junk, and they bring literally $1,500. So we're hoping to be able to sell these things and actually pour some money back into the program. And it'll never be self-sustaining by any stretch of the imagination, but at least it will be a lot further than we are now.
Is that a normal thing for law enforcement?
It is. So if you know, like you hear all the time saying, "Oh, why don't you buy used cars from the Kansas State Highway Patrol?" That's exactly what they lease cars. Police departments all over the country are leasing vehicles now. Because again, it gives them the ability to just keep them under warranty. So anything that lube touches is under warranty. And so, when you're looking at buying, 30 cars, the cost of that is $2 million. Instead, our payments, actually only $400,000 for the year. So it just totally changes.
Now, you still have to outfit them and everything?
Yeah, that's included. Yeah.
Really?
It's all in the state contract.
On the contract.
Yeah, it's all in the state contract, yeah.
So I think similar to what we did with the court clerk's office several years ago, doing the pay parity, the 4-year catch-up. I think if we look at this and that's why I asked how many, because you're not gonna do all of them at once, but if we're able to plan, over the years, exactly what these expenses are gonna be, so we kind of come up with it's 393 this year, and then it'll be, 275 the next year, and 400 the next year, whatever. And then we, instead of being hit with a huge amount, that's not a small amount, but we're not hit with a huge amount all at once. We're on a rotating basis, year in and year out. We know whenever we're anticipating what our budget's gonna be, this is what we're on, and it's something that we can get used to and anticipate. I think it's a good plan.
And I know that other departments, and I think some of the district courts lease equipment, probably just keep some newer stuff in their group. And the interesting thing about the leases is that for state contract leases, like if you were to lease a vehicle on your own, personally, you're gonna pay a certain amount of money on that vehicle. Then when you're done, you've got like a $20,000 balloon payment to get your. So these are actually $1 buyout, and so essentially you own it after you get done with your years, and so you can put them on 3, 4, or 5-year lease. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the whole $1 buyout thing is just purely to make it a lease, so it's legal to where you're not actually incurring debt, I guess. So it's kind of a unique thing that's available to government entities. And so it will allow us to pay for those vehicles over the life of that vehicle, and then the final payment is $1 for all of these, and then they're ours to keep. So we get 100% of the capital cost of that.
And if they're still in good enough shape, you could keep them, or you can just roll that money into your next year to get the next set of cars.
And our plan would be, for the vehicles that drive a bunch, we did an internal study. We found the average patrol officer drives just slightly under 25,000 miles. So, and with government vehicles, you get a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty, which is not the standard, in the world. So in this case, we're gonna put some vehicles on 4 years and some vehicles on 5 years that maybe, don't see as many miles, so, kind of gives us the ability to, you know, customize that as well. And it gives us the ability to walk away from it if for some reason it all goes belly up, and, there's a walkout clause on all of them, so. Sounds like a pretty easy deal. Any questions on 1161? So 1162, there's only two sources of funding, as of right now. It's the JAG grant, which we saw that last year, we're gonna see it again this coming year, and the traffic safety grant. The traffic safety grant is on a federal fiscal year, so that's already been awarded. And so, you'll notice on the budget request worksheet, the salaries, and the overtime wages are contemplated in that. Of course, you got fringe benefits that correspond with that. This does pay for 2 full-time positions out of the highway safety office. Again, those positions are covered at 100%, but only one of them takes benefits. So if that changes, there would be no liability to the county. We would submit a grant adjustment, and I'll take care of that. Travel.
On your salaries real quick, I noticed on the salary page, you're showing an increase of 47,000.
Yeah.
But that's because you didn't roll your other that you're getting rid of, the position that you're getting rid of. You just left it blank over in the other, so it should be a negative amount, and then, then it would show that
I see what you're saying. I got
you're
you.
just like a, $7,000
I got you.
increase.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, that's a good catch. So what he's saying is that last year for 4 months, we did not, or for 4 months, we didn't have one of those positions. We were kind of in transition. We were waiting on, the election changeover in order to get that grant approved. And so that's the reason we didn't have the full amount last year. So, anyway, salaries, benefits, that's all 100% reimbursed. One thing I will say on the capital outlay, and you always catch this stuff at the weirdest time, but it says 55,200 telecommunication equipment. That's not what that is. The grant actually allowed us to buy like a Kawasaki mule and a trailer, because that's where they put the drunk goggles on and they drive around. Kind of give them the feeling of driving drunk within a controlled environment. So that's actually for a mule and a trailer, not for telecommunication equipment. And the JAG grant will come in, and you'll see that'll just pay for our Oklahoma City radio contract, which we're actually trying to do some potential negotiating with that to see if we can make some changes on both of those. So. One thing that I would like to add, I guess I probably should have done this on general fund, but not only are we gonna, lapse some money on general fund dollars. I think our general fund lapse was gonna be, our general fund lapse is gonna be about $220,000. Of course, employee benefits, we see a negative number on that. But the reason for that is because we had some massive payoffs this year. I brought a document since October 20th. We have had $146,869 in unbudgeted payouts, which we are going to be able to absorb 100% in our budget, again, based on the changes that the sheriff has made since he's been here since January. So that's something to point out. That's really, really a good deal.
That's awesome. Anything else?
We can do these last two in just a couple minutes. We won't have to recess. All right, review FY 21-22 estimate of needs for employee benefits and self-insurance.
Okay, we'll make this quick and short. We projected, I think we did the same last year, a 2% increase on medical and prescription claims. Of course, we've had a ramp up of COVID, but there's always the unknown claims that happen anyway. So we estimated a 2% increase on medical and prescription drugs, 2% on dental, 1.5% on vision, stop loss premiums by about 3%. And the good news is I've kept all of our other vendors at no increases, as I try every year. So I always shoot for no increases from anybody. So those fixed fees, we try to keep those in check. If you go down to the bottom, really, the huge thing for general fund this year, and thanks to Danny for tracking all this so good, but we always have to transfer an amount from general fund to cover the retiree employer share portion, okay? Because there's no mechanism to capture that employer share for the retirees. But last year we transferred 5.8 million from general fund. This year we're doing 2.6. That's a difference of 3.2 million not coming out of general fund, which is pretty huge. You know, the increase has been on employer premiums, 1.8 million increase on employer premiums, 950,000 of that's made out of general fund, the rest is special revenue fund. And again, there was no increase to the employee side of premiums this year, so that's probably, you see a 0.4%, and that's really just people dropping off and new employees coming on. And it looks like we're gonna have it depends on how the year comes out, of course, but we'll have a really good beginning fund balance, we should.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Cool.
unless there's any questions, everything's right there. Less money coming out of general fund is probably the big point.
Anybody got anything? All right, seeing none. Thank you, John. Self-insurance.
This is our self-insurance fund. We try to maintain a balance of 100,000 in this fund, so we'll just project out the rest of this fiscal year and how much we'll need to transfer in. It's totally funded by general fund transfers, so we're estimating 181,000 in transfers to keep it at that $100,000 level for next fiscal year. Of course, this is a fund that we pay our tort claims out of.
Any questions? Not. Discussion of possible action regarding follow-up questions related to any other estimated needs that have already been presented. Anything?
Now's the time to
None?
blast Brandon.
Discussion of possible action to make recommendation to budget board from BET regarding FY20.
I do have that updated sheet. I think she sent that out a couple times, but if you can pull that out. I just want to touch on something real quick. It's pretty cool.
That one?
Yeah. I did go ahead and plug in available revenue fund balance that we will have to work with. It's still preliminary because I still don't have all of March's numbers, but I went ahead and plugged in a number. It'll be close to that. That green amount, 105.8 million, that's how much we're gonna have to work with for next year. So based on everything that's been reported, estimated, we will come up short based on that number, about 7.7 million. So the number we're working off of this year is the 112.7 million. Quite a bit of drop. Yes, we're conservative this time of year when we do our estimates, but the biggest part of that drop is the fund balance because of the amount of reserve that we had last year that we didn't spend and carried over. So that's the bad news.
So we have to get tighten that belt.
Very tight.
All right, any citizens participation? Seeing none, board comments. Any board comments, anybody? Seeing none. We got a motion to adjourn, do we have a second? We have a second, all in favor,
You
say
guys are
aye.
saying that too quick, I cannot hear you.
Motion to adjourn, second by Brandon, all in favor.
Thank
Seeing
you.
no objection, motion clearly passes.
Do that, we got 2 minutes to cross.
Right.
Thanks, Rod.
You bet. It'll be fun. I always do with you guys. Ah, you liar. My favorite color of paint is rye. Yeah, right?